There's a whole nother side to this, though. I met with another immigrant whose heritage extends to India as well. Her name is Leezia Dhalla. Her parents brought her to the U.S. legally from Canada. Then their visas fell through. Appeals went unheard. Today, she's a dreamer, determined to stay in the place that she considers home. Leezia, you've spent more than 2 decades here in the U.S. You are a dreamer. Can you give me a brief background on your family and your dreamer status?
Sure. So the DACA program was created roughly 5 years ago to allow young people that came to the U.S. as kids to be able to basically legally work and live and study in the country where they grew up. So my family and I moved here from Canada in October of 1996 when I was 6 years old. We came legally on a visa and tried multiple times to get permanent residency, but one time our lawyer filed our paperwork late. Another time the employer sponsoring us sold his business, and so because there was a change in ownership, we had to restart the entire application process.
Each time?
Each time. It's very expensive, it is emotionally draining, it's exhausting, and more than 20 years later, we have found ourselves undocumented. And I actually learned about my status during my junior year of college when I got a letter in the mail from the Department of Homeland Security, and it was a notice to appear in immigration court.
And what were you like? What? Yeah. Do you have the right Leezia?
Yeah, exactly. It was. I was blindsided. I was completely shocked because for me, since I had come in on a visa, I had a driver's license and I had a social security number, and I was already able to take out loans to go to school. Although that's a really unusual case, I was really fortunate, and so I was extremely surprised. And fortunately, DACA was announced on my college graduation day. I mean, I was at my ceremony on the day that it was announced.
Really? Did
and
you cry?
I don't think I had fully understood what it would do for me at the time, but over the past 5 years it's been incredibly transformative. It has allowed me to work, it has allowed me to buy a home, buy a car, pay off more than $100,000 in student loans. It has allowed me to start a business, it has allowed me to pay taxes. So there are definitely a lot of benefits to the DACA program.
First of all, I need some financial tips from you if you paid off $100,000 in student loans. But secondly, I think one word in there stuck out to me: Canada. You're originally from Canada, right? Your ethnicity, going back generations, roots itself in India and in Africa, right? Many people, they hear DACA, they only think Mexican children, and that's just not the case.
That's not the case. DACA recipients come from all continents. They are spread, their origins are from around the world. There are roughly 600,000 undocumented people in this country who are Black Americans, and on average, every undocumented person in the United States has lived here for a period of at least 14 years, so they're not new Americans. They've been here for a long time. They have houses, they have cars here, they're financially invested. This is also where their communities are. They grew up here, so we go to churches in the U.S. This is where our schools are, this is where our friends are. We are definitely American in every single way except by virtue of birth. And so I think for people like me who've been in this country for 2 decades, we deserve a permanent solution, and that's what the DREAM Act would do.
And you've been very vocal and transparent about your experience. Many other people might not feel like they, can talk so openly about what they have at stake. But if you think about it, there are 800,000 people, right, who have enrolled in DACA. It's 800,000 workers the U.S. could lose. Absolutely.
Yeah, there are huge consequences to repealing DACA. Right now, of the 800,000 people who are enrolled, roughly 91% of them are employed in our workforce. And so if DACA is repealed, the U.S. would lose more than $400 billion in GDP over the next 10 years. A DACA repeal means we would literally pull 10,000 people from the American workforce every week for the next year and a half. So that is a tremendous number of people who are not going to be able to work, who are not going to be able to use their brain power. I know DACA recipients in particular who are working in labs to find cures for cancer. I know dreamers who are software developers at these incredible companies. I know dreamers who have started businesses. Roughly 6% of them have started businesses. They employ U.S. workers, and without their work permit, they're not going to be able to employ Americans. Their businesses will shutter. There's big economic consequences, but there's also a big moral consequence, I think, of having people that we have invested so much in, and people who I think in their hearts and minds know that they are American, that they belong here, and who just want a shot at the American dream. And for us, that's what DACA has provided.
You know, it's a pretty small number, even among Republicans in the base, under 25%, I believe, that want to see DACA recipients deported. And so you see widespread support out there. You now are an activist for this, and you definitely have a lot of skin in the game. What do you think is the most misunderstood thing? That's my final question for you. What do you think people out there misunderstand about the program and about the people involved?
That's a great question. I think the thing that people may not understand is that DACA is a merit-based program. So in order to get that work permit and get a temporary reprieve from deportation, we had to register with the government. We had to pass a background check, including fingerprinting. I had to fill out a form with my family's information, their names, their addresses. I had to meet certain educational requirements. I also had to meet certain
vulnerability. I would think also, like you've told who your parents are, and then worry that
Right. It's
800,000 people have done that.
800,000 people, yeah, and I think that's part of what is contributing to the fear of people not wanting to come forward and apply for the program anymore, is they don't know if the government is going to use that information against them. So I think for us, and for me personally, and for America, I think it makes sense to allow these people to come out of the shadows, for us to get jobs and to pay taxes and to just live out in the open. But these people, I think it's important to know that they've been here for decades, and it benefits no one when we keep them in the shadows.
Leezia Dhalla, thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Thanks a lot.